always looked down on William, who pushed all the housework and childcare onto me. That William came back from his business trip. He left his cell phone on the sofa and went to take a shower. The ringtone sounded, and when I looked at William's cell phone, I saw a message from a woman. "I know your passcode." Catherine gasped as she opened the message screen. "Let's have a date at the end of next month. It's our 10th anniversary after all." Sean, who was peeking at the cell phone screen with me, said with a bitter look on his face. "I saw him cheating." "What?" "I saw him on the last day of the school trip." The image on the cell phone Sean showed me captured William entering a hotel, snuggling up to a young woman. I was overwhelmed by a feeling of emptiness. I've been betrayed for 10 years. Catherine and Sean looked at me with concern as I sobbed. Eventually, Catherine and Sean expressed their anger. "We'll make him regret it and show him hell. I won't forgive him even if he apologizes deeply." And so, the children's revenge plot began. I'm Misty, a 50-year-old working mother. This year marks the 14th year of my marriage to my husband William. I met William through a matchmaking service. I was attracted to his stable income from working at a large company, but his refreshing aura and bright smile were especially charming. I quit my full-time job after graduating college to accommodate William's wish for me to be home when he gets back from work. However, once we got married, his attitude changed completely. William turned out to be the kind of person who looks down on others and spews verbal abuse with a smile. During our courtship, William narrowed his eyes at a baby in a stroller, saying how cute, and enthusiastically told me, "I want 2 kids. Ideally 1 boy and 1 girl." You're right. It sounds lively and fun. But as if that conversation never happened, William pushed all the baby care onto me just 1 month after giving birth. "I'm still not back to normal after coming back from my parents' house. If you're not good at housework, at least help take care of Sean." Even though I desperately tried to convey this, he brushed me off with an exasperated look. "Why are you being so needy? Taking care of the baby is the mom's job, right? And you're an unemployed housewife, so you should be fine without sleep." "Of course I'm not fine. I'm not fully conscious and every day is hard." "So you want me, who's working, to help out? That's ridiculous." William pursed his lips. "I earn a salary and provide for you all. You take perfect care of Sean and the housework. It's only natural that we each fulfill our roles. What are you dissatisfied with?" "Of course, I'm very grateful that you earn a salary. I really appreciate it. But William, you're Sean's dad, right? Bathing him, changing his diapers. Even if it's just on your days off, please take over those things for me." When I appealed to him with teary eyes, William glanced at Sean sleeping in the crib and uttered a shocking line. "I just can't." "What?" "You know, babies are smelly and dirty, right? I'm a neat freak, so I hate getting dirty. I'll hold him at least, though." He dealt another blow to my dumbfounded self. "Also, Misty, you've been looking a bit grimy lately." "Huh?" He told me with an annoyed expression as I frowned. "Your body shape has deteriorated since giving birth, and you've stopped dressing up. Your hair is a mess as you take care of Sean. You don't even look like a woman anymore." "That can't be helped," I shouted without thinking. "William, you have no idea how hard it is for me every day. Feeding milk every 2 hours day and night, rushing over whenever I hear crying. I put myself second. That's the life I lead." That's just an excuse, right? Actresses and such return to work right after having a baby. They stay beautiful, so recognize your lack of effort. I was at a loss for words when he teasingly said that. Some time passed again. When I expressed anxiety about Sean not eating solid food, William cut me off in one fell swoop. "It's because your cooking is bad." "What?" "I put up with it and eat it every day too. Babies are honest." He laughed loudly, and I felt like crying. While pushing all the housework and childcare onto me, William only hurled criticism, and I gradually became exhausted. William also criticized me at every turn, comparing me to other women. "Carol next door is always beautiful. Hard to believe she has a high school-aged son. She sets her long hair nicely, it's great." I replied, feeling sick to my stomach at William's dreamy expression. "I want to go to the hair salon for the first time in 6 months too. Can you watch Sean?" Then William raised his voice. "Huh? Why should I? Just for half a day is fine." Hey, you're supposed to make time for yourself." William spoke with a mocking air. "Unlike you, I only have weekends off. Are you going to take that away too? Are you going to make me work at home too?" I retorted, not backing down. "William, you go out alone on your days off and fully enjoy your time off at home playing games. But I don't have any days off, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. That's to be expected since you're the mom. You're the dad too, you know. And $30 a month for an allowance is way too little. I can't even properly buy cosmetics." William slammed his teacup on the dining table. "You should be grateful you even get an allowance while unemployed. You're being cheeky even though I'm supporting you. That's why I decided to manage the household finances. In our house, it's not me, the housewife, but William who manages the household finances. When we got married, I agreed without thinking deeply about it, but I soon regretted it. The thing is, William absolutely never shows me his pay stubs. I properly give you living expenses. What's wrong with me freely using my own salary?" When I asked to see the bank book and pay stubs, he would invariably get in a bad mood, so I eventually gave up pursuing it. Even when William was home on his days off, he would only speak to Sean on a whim or play with him to some extent. You could say he was almost indifferent. So while I can't say Sean is attached to William, I felt it would be inconvenient to take his dad away from him, and I couldn't bring myself to divorce. As a housewife with a young child, I of course also anticipated the risks of divorce. The year Sean entered elementary school, I became pregnant with our second child. My love for William had cooled, but I couldn't give up on my dream of wanting 2 children. After experiencing 1 miscarriage, I was over the moon about the baby I was blessed with. William also wanted a girl, so I had a faint hope that if a girl was born, he might dote on her a little. But with bad timing, right before elementary school summer vacation, William received a transfer order to a regional office. "What do you want to do? Are you coming with me?" I shook my head. "Sean has gotten used to elementary school, and I have mom friends here, so I want to raise the children here. Plus, it's reassuring to have my pregnancy monitored at the hospital that took care of me during the miscarriage." Then William unusually spoke kind words. "That's true. It's not just your body alone. William, this is your first time living alone, right? Will you be okay?" "It's fine. I'll just clean haphazardly, and I'll buy meal delivery services and deli items." I was relieved that William readily agreed. Eventually, our long-awaited baby girl was born. Sean seemed to adore his little sister, who was 7 years younger than him. Even if she scribbled in his homework notebook or broke his treasured toys, he forgave it all with a smile. Catherine also loved her kind brother Sean. At home, she would follow him around and constantly try to imitate him. One time, even though she couldn't read kanji, she peered into the children's book Sean was reading and disrupted his reading. There were also times she would cling to Sean's feet as he helped prepare dinner, making a fuss wanting his attention. Even at times like that, Sean never got angry at Catherine. He would read children's books to her in easy-to-understand sentences or have her help with things she could do, like removing the strings from beans, trying to get along well with her. Taking care of the housework and child-rearing alone was tougher than I imagined, but thanks to Sean willingly watching Catherine, I somehow managed to get through it. Eventually, when Catherine turned 4, I put her in daycare and resumed working part-time. A few years later, William returned after finishing his stint abroad, but in less than half a year, he was assigned to transfer to another location. This time, he was going as the director of a newly established business office. That was fine, but his presence as a dad remained lacking as always. Since she was his long-awaited daughter, every time he came home, he brought snacks and toys and took pictures with her, but that only lasted until Catherine's sense of self sprouted. When she started asserting herself, he openly showed displeasure at Catherine getting attached to Sean and began complaining. "I went out of my way to buy you a picture book, so why are you begging Sean to read it? Come to me. She just really loves Sean. It can't be helped." William clicked his tongue and vented his anger at me. "Isn't it because your discipline is bad, Misty? I bet you're bad-mouthing me to the kids after I leave." Then Catherine, who overheard from the hallway, rushed into the living room and interjected. "That's not true, Dad. Even when you come home, you just play games and don't play with me, right? But Sean plays with me at the park and listens to my stories about daycare. That's why I like Sean more." I was surprised at Catherine expressing her opinion in her innocent way of speaking. As expected of a girl, even though she's still in daycare, she's mature. Beside me, feeling impressed, William, whose dignity as a dad was wounded, retorted with a beet-red face. "Oh, is that so? Well, I hate cheeky brats like you too. Hey, don't talk to a child like that. It's your bad parenting, Misty. It's outrageous for her to defy her dad." William glared at me and Catherine, gathered his things, and returned to his post. Like this, he kept making arrogant remarks every time he opened his mouth, so it could be said it was his own fault that the children disliked him. Even without the children saying it out loud, I could tell from their distant attitude towards William. As soon as William came home, he would always sprawl on the sofa playing games on his cell phone or watching videos and laughing. Both Sean and Catherine would come out of their rooms to match the timing of William's return home. However, when they tried talking to William, they would get brushed off with things like "you're noisy" or "I'm busy, so go away," so recently they stopped trying to talk to him. I always wondered why he came back every month if he had no intention of interacting with his family. But the other day, the reason became clear at a neighborhood association gathering, and I was flabbergasted. "Mr. Collins, you're living alone in Washington, D.C. for work, right? It's admirable that you come home every month to see your children. I bet Sean and Catherine are happy, right? You're a good dad." Huh? Oh, yes. I smiled back ambiguously. I endure it because the neighbors gossip, but what kind of faces would the residents make if I spilled the actual situation? School entrance and graduation ceremonies have nothing to do with me, right? Catherine's piano recital? Sean is participating in an English debate competition? You go. Don't make me use my precious paid leave on that stuff. Even though he's their dad, he goes and says lines like this. The children are growing up to be good kids using William as a negative role model. Catherine, who attends the local elementary school, serves as a class representative, and Sean entered one of the top college prep schools in the state. He inherited William's intelligence and is enrolled in the advanced class. Unlike William, he doesn't show off his smarts or look down on others. He's a kind child who cares about family. The lively and energetic Catherine serves as class rep and has many friends. I'm surprised at how different the siblings' personalities are. In the fall, I purchased a gym bag and a large backpack. They were for Sean to use on his school trip. Dad lives in Georgetown too, right? Maybe I'll run into him somewhere. Even though he doesn't like William, he seemed to look forward to possibly meeting him by chance. Sean, who left in high spirits, looked strangely down when he returned home 4 days later. Even when Catherine asked about the trip, he only gave curt responses. But then, as I was washing dishes after dinner, he tried to talk to me several times, hemming and hawing, but in the end gave up on saying anything. Sean, what's wrong? No, it's nothing. I'm tired, so I'm going to bed. Okay. Good night. Good night. With slumped shoulders, he weakly climbed the stairs and quietly closed his bedroom door. After that, Sean was depressed for a while. When William came home at the end of the month, Sean shut himself in his room with a displeased air and didn't come down even at dinner time. It was rare for the good-natured Sean to act like that. During the meal, I suddenly had an idea and brought it up to William. It must be a hassle to come home by plane, right? Why don't I go to Washington, D.C. sometimes? I can cook for you and tidy up your room. Then William's face changed color. For some reason, he refused in a flustered manner. No, it's fine. You're busy too, right? Don't worry about me. Really? I felt something was off. Before he would always say, husbands should always take care of their wives, and now this? After dinner, while William was taking a shower, his cell phone started ringing, left behind on the sofa. A message popped up on the screen. Casually glancing at it, I gasped in shock. It was a text from a woman. William, I assume you're with your family right now? I miss you so much. Based on the content, she was most likely his mistress. Her name seemed to be Aurora. Catherine, who saw it just like I did, picked up the phone. I know his passcode. Hey, you can't just snoop through someone's phone like that. I scolded her, but Catherine just grinned mischievously. It's fine. Dad takes forever in the shower. That's not the point. That reaction totally proves he's cheating. As Catherine entered the passcode, Sean came downstairs. He peeked at the messaging app with us. When their conversation appeared, Sean's face darkened. He let out a deep sigh. I knew it. Catherine, about to scream, hurriedly covered her mouth. Let's have a date at the end of next month. It's our 10th anniversary after all. We'll have a fancy dinner, stay at a hotel with a great night view, and spend a lazy morning in my room. I'll wear that designer dress you recently bought me. Dad was really cheating on you. Catherine was visibly shocked. Then Sean spoke quietly, a bitter expression on his face. I saw him cheating with my own eyes. What? I spotted them on the last day of my school trip. Sean zoomed in on an image on the phone. My knees nearly gave out from under me. It was a photo of William arm in arm with a young woman, entering a hotel. There's no doubt about it now. It's definitely an affair. On the last day of the school trip, we had free time, remember? While our group was exploring the city, I spotted a couple in the distance entering the hotel. Sean explained with a grim expression on his face. How did you even recognize it was Dad? The age gap between them caught my eye. It was like a parent and child. As I stood there, at a loss for words, Sean apologized regretfully. I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you as soon as I got home, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. No, it's okay. It must have been a terrible experience for you. Thinking about how Sean had been struggling with this alone, I felt a surge of anger towards William. At the same time, an overwhelming sense of emptiness washed over me, as if a gaping hole had opened up in my chest. I let out a dry laugh and spoke quietly. Haha. It seems like I've been betrayed for 10 years. I guess all I can do now is laugh. Wait, 10 years? The 10th anniversary mentioned in the message is a celebration of the 10th wedding anniversary. At Sean's explanation, Catherine's eyes widened in shock. 10 years? That means it started when I was still in the womb. And it's been going on ever since? I can't believe it. Unbelievable. I sank into a chair, attempting to keep my tone light but failing miserably. A burning sensation rose in my throat, and large tears began to spill from my eyes. As I sobbed, Catherine and Sean watched me with concern etched on their faces. Crying in front of the children like this was so pathetic. I knew that, but I couldn't control my emotions. When Catherine was in my womb, William had been unusually kind to me. I had convinced myself it was because of a previous miscarriage. But I was wrong. It was simply to ease his guilt over the affair. Sniffling and wiping my tears with the back of my hand, I heard Catherine ask Sean a question. Sean, you're not planning on letting this slide, are you? Of course not. Sean's voice was filled with anger as he replied. Looking up, I saw both Catherine and Sean's faces twisted with rage. I won't let Dad get away with this any longer. We'll make him see hell and regret it. Yeah. Even if he apologizes deeply, I won't forgive him. My heart swelled with joy. It was inappropriate, but I felt reassured by the siblings teaming up together. I told myself that I couldn't just sit here crying weakly. I needed to be stronger. Sensing William coming out of the bathroom, I fled to the bedroom. If I faced William now, I felt like I would confront him about the affair. Sean and Catherine said they would get revenge, so I couldn't ruin it. Mom seems to be feeling unwell. Did she eat something weird? I could hear their exchange from downstairs. After that, William showed no concern for me and returned to Washington, D.C. again. And the next day. The night before the day Aurora referred to as the 10th anniversary in her message, the children and I flew into Washington, D.C. Early the next morning, we checked out of the hotel and waited for William and Aurora in front of Aurora's apartment building. About an hour later, William and Aurora appeared from across the street. Seeing William slovenly grin as he held hands with Aurora filled me with intense disgust. Aurora, dressed in a high-end designer dress, was a beautiful woman. It was surprising that she was being a mistress to a middle-aged man. She was still young and could have her pick of men, which made me question it. The couple, with an age gap like parent and child, stood out in a bad way. It was understandable that Sean had noticed them immediately. William, who had arrived in front of the apartment with a beaming smile, froze when he saw us blocking the entrance. The color visibly drained from his face. Oh no, this is... He let go of Aurora's hand and started to stammer an excuse, but couldn't form the words properly. William, who are they? Acquaintances? After asking in a nasal voice, Aurora seemed to realize it too. Don't tell me, your wife and kids? Ugh, I can't believe they came all the way to Washington, D.C. William, giving up on excuses, asked in a hoarse voice. How did you know about this place? I saw you and Dad going into a hotel during the school trip. I waited for you to come out and followed you, which led me to this apartment building. Sean explained with a grim expression. So we know everything. It's pointless to make excuses now, Dad. Anyway, let's not chat out here. Let's go to Aurora's room. As soon as I urged them, William and Aurora flared up in anger. I bet Misty put them up to this. What kind of mother makes her kids do something like this? Why should we let you into the room too? Let's go, William. As William and Aurora started walking away again, I raised my voice and spoke to their backs. Look who's talking, someone with not a shred of fatherly decency. You know what, Aurora? I can make a scene here. How you guys are cheating. Just then, people who seemed to be residents emerged from the apartment entrance. Judging by how they nodded to Aurora, they appeared to be acquaintances. Aurora glared at me resentfully and headed swiftly towards the apartment entrance. Even when the children and I accompanied her, she didn't shut us out and let us ride the elevator together. Sean and Catherine gave me a thumbs up, mouthing "nice job." I nodded and returned the same gesture. When we entered the apartment, there were mugs and bowls lined up in the cupboard that seemed to be for male use. William's toothbrush and razor were likely placed in the bathroom too. Sitting on the living room sofa, I spread out the investigation report I received from the private detective on the table. Seeing it, William said in an exasperated tone, "You even hired a private detective?" "That's right. Thanks to that, I found out something interesting." I smiled at William and Aurora. "You two have been having an affair for the past 10 years, right?" "That's right. And you even have a child together?" William hesitated for a moment, but then readily admitted, "Yeah, we do." "Are you paying child support?" "Of course I am. As a father, I have to take responsibility." I felt the urge to throw my cup of coffee right in William's smug face. How dare he say such things when he's barely had any contact with Sean and Catherine? "But Aurora, you don't have any desire to get married, do you?" Asked curiously, Aurora looks up at William. "I'm already so blessed, just being with you, William. I don't care about titles or status. You know that you're the most important thing to me." "Ah, that's what I love about you, Aurora." William pulled Aurora close and nodded affectionately, ignoring the disgusted looks on Sean, Catherine, and me. Yeah. But William isn't your number one, is he?" "Well, my daughter is just as important to me." "Not her, I meant this person. You married him because you love him, right?" Aurora froze, still smiling. I laid out several photos on the table. In front of a stately house, Aurora handed a black attaché case to a bespectacled man in a suit. There was also a photo of the man kneeling down, gently speaking to a young girl. The composition made it clear these were all secretly taken photos. "Huh? Who's this guy?" William tilted his head quizzically as I explained. "Aurora's husband." "What? Huh? Oh, you didn't know? Aurora got married 5 years ago." William stared at Aurora, dumbfounded. Wait a minute. You're joking, right, Aurora?" Aurora averted her eyes in discomfort as William was at a loss for words. I skimmed through the investigation files on Aurora and concisely relayed the key points. "I see. Her husband works for a famous international company. He was stationed in the UK before, and now he's at the German headquarters." "Impressive." "Whoa, an elite!" "So cool!" Catherine chimed in. "She stayed in the US to enroll her daughter in a private preschool." "That's the official reason, but the real reason was to keep seeing you, William." "Lucky you. Aurora clearly cherishes you." William glared at me resentfully, his mouth opening and closing but unable to form words. He seemed incredibly shocked to learn Aurora already had a husband. You opened a nail salon in your house? Isn't that just a rich housewife's hobby? That's not true. Aurora got defensive. I mean, anyone can easily open a home salon if they have the startup funds. Being a nail technician doesn't require a national license, after all. Catherine and Sean followed the script we'd planned, trying to back Aurora into a corner and make her slip up. Oh right, I heard at first some neighborhood housewives and mom friends would come, but your skills were subpar, so you got a bad reputation. Now it's practically closed down. Poor thing. How rude. My sales aren't great, but I do still get customers sometimes. Aurora didn't notice William's expression becoming more and more grim beside her. Aurora, is it true that you're married? Aurora flinched slightly at William's harsh tone as she turned to face him, but quickly switched to a wheedling voice. I'm so sorry, William. I'm sorry for keeping it from you until now. But my feelings for you are genuine, I swear. But Aurora... Ooh, look! Little Aurora is so cute. Shut up! Be quiet for a bit. Sean, Catherine, and I peered at the photo of Aurora's daughter, gushing exaggeratedly. Look, she's the spitting image of Aurora's hubby, isn't she? You're right. Little Aurora takes after her daddy. William's eyes went wide. He snatched the photo we'd been looking at and stared intensely, his body starting to tremble. It was no wonder. In the photo of Aurora's husband and daughter together, looking so close, the two looked like twins. My husband and William look really similar. That's why my daughter looks just like my husband too. Aurora started spouting nonsensical excuses as the kids and I burst out laughing. Aurora's husband was fair-skinned and slender with a kind face. In contrast, William had strong, chiseled features with tanned, muscular skin. It would be harder to find any similarities between the two. Just admit it already. She's your husband's child, not William's. I held back laughter as I said it. Beside Aurora, William muttered in a dark voice, head still hanging low. So I've been paying $800 a month in child support for someone else's kid? $800 is double the normal amount. That's so like William, always having to show off. He probably smugly agreed to that absurdly high amount. He must have assumed he could get away with deceiving me since he controlled the finances. With an agonized expression, William continued. The same goes for the rent for this apartment. I paid for my daughter's volleyball classes, clothes, and the latest game console. I was told that the reason I don't get to see my daughter much is because you usually leave her at your parents' house, so I felt like I had no choice. I was convinced. William's face turned beet red, the flush extending down to his neck. So all that money was wasted on some ridiculous nail salon startup? His booming voice made Aurora flinch momentarily, but she quickly retorted. What's wrong with taking money from a rich guy? Pursuing your dreams costs money. It can't be helped. Eyes narrowed and voice raised, her demeanor was a far cry from the woman who had been cozying up to William just moments ago. Sneering at William's shocked expression, Aurora brazenly admitted. That's right. I was bored while my husband was stationed overseas, so I figured I'd have some fun with William after meeting him at the bar. He bragged about being some hotshot elite despite making less than my husband, so I thought I'd milk him for all he was worth. William's face crumpled into utter despair as she spoke. My husband returned from the UK but then took off to Germany right after finding out I was pregnant. I told William as a test and he was over the moon about it. Weird, right? Considering he already has a daughter. I nodded in disgusted agreement at Aurora's mocking laughter. The type to celebrate having a kid but then do none of the actual childcare. Oh, an international businessman. Your husband must be like super smart. Catherine chimed in with naive enthusiasm. Aurora flashed her a smug, victorious smile. Well, sure. But William makes good money too, doesn't he? He gave me quite a lot, after all. The kids and I exchanged glances before looking over at William, who guiltily avoided our gaze. I mean, he does make a decent salary, but... Dad's drowning in debt, Catherine interjected bluntly. Aurora's eyes widened in surprise. Huh? William took out loan after loan to fund your lifestyle. I explained matter-of-factly. His savings are long gone and his credit cards are maxed out on revolving payments. Most of his paycheck these days goes to paying down his debts. Aurora tilted her head quizzically. So then how are you getting by now? On my salary. Now it was William's turn to look shocked. What? But you only work part-time for peanuts, right? Did you forget? I told you I was going full-time once Catherine started elementary school. I'm a branch manager now. I earn about the same salary as you, a section manager. What? Isn't William a director? Misty asked, surprised. You think this man is capable of being a director at the head office? I retorted. The children nodded in agreement, leaving William looking resentful but unable to argue against the truth. Aurora pressed her temples, her confusion apparent. Well then, the story about owning land is also doubtful. Is your only asset the house? That house is in my name. It's an asset I inherited from my parents. William doesn't even pay the property taxes. As the facts were exposed one after another, Aurora seemed completely disillusioned. So he doesn't have much money after all. Then I don't want him. She stared coldly at William, her words sharp. I'm returning him to you, Misty. I don't want him either. And even if you return him now, it doesn't erase the crime of breaking up someone's family. Yeah. I just have to pay compensation for the divorce lawsuit, right? Aurora said, looking bored as she ran her fingers through her long hair. There was no sign of remorse at all. Watching this, Sean fiddled with his mobile phone for a bit before calling someone. Thank you for waiting. Please come in. Soon, the doorbell rang. Aurora, who had gone to answer it, let out a scream-like voice. Hey, Kevin? Why are you in America? I heard everything from Sean. Can you let me in? Aurora must have realized that she had no chance of winning even if she resisted. She unlocked the autolock and after a while, let the man who had arrived at the front of the room inside. It seemed to be Kevin, Aurora's husband, who was in the photos with Aurora and their daughter. William trembled under Kevin's quiet intimidation. Kevin gave Aurora and William a cold look and spoke in a calm voice. I heard your conversation through Sean's mobile phone. Do either of you have an explanation? I didn't know Aurora was married. William spoke in a fading voice, and Kevin nodded. It seems so. Therefore, we won't demand compensation from William for the divorce lawsuit. William breathed a sigh of relief. Aurora remained silent beside him, looking dissatisfied. I had suspected an affair for a while. The other day, before returning home, I tracked down this apartment and was wandering around the entrance when I met Sean in his school uniform. Kevin thought I got lost during the school trip and started talking to me. When I told him that Dad's mistress lived here and talked in detail, we were surprised to find out we had the same goal. Kevin took over the rest of the story. Sean asked me to wait before barging in because he wanted revenge on his dad. He wanted me to tell him about Aurora, so he and I split the cost and hired a private investigator to conduct a background check on her. Yes, with Kevin as an ally, Sean was able to afford to hire a private investigator. The background check was expensive, and his allowance alone wasn't enough to cover the cost. I also wanted to know what had happened while I was away from the States. So I pretended to return to Germany but stayed here and kept in touch with Sean. Of course, Catherine and I had also heard the story from Sean. We planned to appear at the end to deal the final blow to Aurora. As expected, Aurora turned pale and held her head in her hands. "Aurora, let's get a divorce. I'll take custody of our daughter. If you love money that much, you can remarry some company president." I'm already 30 years old. Remarriage will be difficult. And how am I supposed to live without your salary? She clung to Kevin, looking as if she might cry at any moment. Kevin gently removed Aurora's hands and spat out his words. "You'll have to work hard. A life of fawning over men and squeezing money out of them won't last anyway." He turned to face me, Sean, and Catherine, and bowed deeply. "I apologize for the trouble Aurora has caused you." "Oh, no, not at all," I said hurriedly, bowing my head and urging the children. "You three probably have a lot to discuss, so we'll be leaving." "Yeah, let's go," Sean agreed. As we got ready to leave, William, who had followed us to the entrance, offered a deep apology. "Misty, I was wrong. I'm sorry. Please forgive me and don't divorce me." "Why don't you want a divorce?" Catherine asked, looking puzzled. "He probably wants me to take over paying his debts instead of him." William's cheeks stiffened instantly. It seemed I had hit the nail on the head. "Are you stupid? What do you think Mom is?" Catherine scolded William harshly. "I don't need a dad like this. I'm cutting ties with you." I agree. It's too late for a deep apology now. "I won't forgive you." Sean spat out angrily. "I'll send the divorce papers to your company housing tomorrow. Make sure to submit them to the city office." "No way." "Hey, wait." William pleaded, his face streaked with tears as we shut the door on him. According to what I heard from Sean, Kevin did as he declared and slapped Aurora with the divorce papers. Of course, he also demanded compensation for the divorce lawsuit and won custody of their young daughter. Kicked out of their grand mansion, Aurora tearfully turned to her parents for help, but they were furious. For the time being, she borrowed money from her parents to pay the compensation to Kevin and me in a lump sum. Now, to pay her parents back, she's working part-time jobs day and night without rest. As for William, even after I sent the divorce papers to his company housing in Washington, D.C., he kept refusing to submit them to the city office. Apparently, he was seriously expecting me to take over paying his debts for him. When I messaged him to submit the papers quickly, I got a flurry of replies. "Please reconsider the divorce. You need me, don't you? You'll regret leaving me." He was so persistent that I had my lawyer tell him, "If you keep delaying, we'll take this to court." Finally, he seemed to give up. William submitted the divorce papers and transferred the compensation to my account. While he kept the reason for the divorce confidential at work, he let it slip to a close colleague, and it quickly spread throughout the company. Feeling uncomfortable, he quit his job and is now making a living with part-time work. Cut off by me and the children, he's working hard every day just to pay off his massive debts. Colleagues say he's complained that there's no joy in living anymore. Now that I'm free of William, I feel much lighter. Sean, Catherine and I are having busy but fulfilling days. Through this incident, I learned that the easygoing Sean has surprising initiative. And the eloquent Catherine showed me what a kind, mom-loving child she is. From now on, I want to protect my precious children and live happily together with them. My name is Mary. In my late 30s, I used to work in public relations, while my husband, Matthew, also in his late 30s, was a salesman at the same company. We got married 10 years ago and bought a house in the suburbs. A few years later, our son Donald was born. Standing before our tiny, newborn child, Matthew said, "I'll work hard to earn money, so Mary, please stay at home and take care of Donald's." I loved my job, but all I could say was, "Okay." That's because I felt the same about prioritizing parenting. Donald grew up healthy and energetic, and now he's a soccer kid. Being part of a sports team requires various forms of parental support, which can be quite time-consuming. But the joy of cheering them on surpasses all that. Through soccer, I've made a lot of friends among the parents, and I love the sense of supporting our kids together. In the process, my skills in photography and writing, honed while creating company newsletters, were recognized, and I became the team's PR person, all on a volunteer basis, leading a fulfilling life. However, about 6 months ago, my husband suddenly exploded. "Why are you wasting your time on things that don't make money? Stop resting and go earn some money. Didn't you want me to stay by Donald's side because you would earn the money?" I asked in surprise. "When did I say that?" He retorted, even angrier. Indeed, as Donald started elementary school and seemed to need less hands-on care, I noticed other mothers beginning to take part-time jobs. "Okay, I'll look for a part-time job," I said. "What? A part-time job? Don't be lazy. Go earn a proper income," he replied, oddly irritable. So, I reluctantly started job hunting again and decided to work full-time. I looked for a place with flexible hours to minimize the impact on Donald's life and ended up joining my current company. Since I started working, life has changed dramatically. Juggling work, housework, and parenting is quite tough, and I'm barely managing by making full use of various systems. Soccer practice is 3 times a week, on Wednesdays and weekends, but I can't participate in the Wednesday practice due to regular meetings. However, the other mothers kindly offered to take my place and even to take Donald to practice, which has been a great help. As for Matthew, his attitude towards housework and parenting remained uncooperative, just like before I started working. In fact, since I began working, he started coming home later. This was due to overtime or entertaining clients, but clearly, there were also nights he stayed out until the date changed. Since I started working and our income increased, my husband arbitrarily raised his allowance, saying, "I'm spending my own allowance on drinks, so it's fine," without any hint of remorse. But in a way, that was a blessing because I didn't have to prepare dinner for him after practice, and Donald and I could dine out without any worries, not having to prepare snacks for alcohol. Rather than having an unhelpful husband come home early, it was more convenient for him to return after Donald had gone to bed. So, I never once blamed him for coming home late. Upon reflection, such a situation was far from ideal, and our marital relationship rapidly cooled. My husband used to accompany us to the weekend games to cheer, but gradually, he began to leave his seat mid-game for cigarettes or the restroom. "Donald scored a goal just now. Can't you pay a bit more attention to the game?" I chided him upon his return, to which he shrugged. "Even though it's my kids' game, they're all so bad, it's hardly interesting." In contrast to the other fathers sitting next to my husband, who were enthusiastically cheering on their children, he was focused only on the screen of his mobile phone, not the game. I was on the verge of telling him he didn't need to come anymore, but when the game ended, and an elated Donald reported, "Dad, did you see? I scored today." I swallowed those words. Faced with Donald's happiness, my husband responded with a smile. Yeah, I saw it. You've gotten really good. So, I couldn't tell him not to come anymore. Amidst these frustrations, an incident happened one day. As usual, there was a friendly match that weekend, and we were at the ground in the neighboring town. While finishing up in the restroom and washing my hands, a woman with long hair, exuding perfume, passed behind me. The scent made every hair on my body stand on end with an ominous feeling of déjà vu. As I was about to turn around, "Oh, Karen, it's rare to see you here on the weekend," came the voice of my friend Linda, and the woman called Karen quickly left the place, looking uncomfortable, with a quick, "Yeah, I'll see you around." When I asked Linda, wondering if she was the wife of one of the enthusiastic fathers, "Is that lady?" Linda shrugged. "Yeah, Karen works on weekends. She'd usually come on a Wednesday. Maybe you haven't met her. She's recently gotten flashier with her belongings. You saw it, right? All branded stuff. She's always been pretty but had a plain look before, so you might not recognize her even if you've met." I couldn't pinpoint what bothered me about that scent, but the sweet fragrance, out of place on the soccer field, indeed unsettled me. With an inexplicable unease, I returned to the spectator seats beside the field and sat next to my husband. My husband still seemed uninterested in the game, constantly looking at his mobile phone screen. After a while, his phone rang, and his expression brightened as he glanced at the screen. Then, quickly, I need to take this work call outside," he said and hurried away from the spot. His unnaturally happy demeanor filled me with suspicion, but the cheers around me, celebrating a spectacular goal by our team, distracted me enough to start taking pictures. The team scored a brilliant goal, and everyone erupted in excitement. The children who scored linked arms and flashed peace signs towards the parents' seats. "Did you get a picture?" Your husband missed the crucial moment. James, Karen's husband, commented. "I did. I'll have to show it to my husband later." "Got a good one of your son, too," I replied, then asked, "Oh, where's your wife?" James looked surprised. "My wife? She works on Sundays, so she's not here." And he said, But just now," I began, looking to Linda for confirmation. "She was here before the game," Linda confirmed. "However, are you sure?" "She went to work this morning," James said, puzzled. Perhaps it was a mix-up with another team's mom, and we left it at that, but it was definitely Karen. She even responded. Why would she come to the venue without telling her husband? Linda brought it up again after the game. "I wonder why," I murmured, scanning for my husband. He hadn't returned since saying he was taking a call, even after the game ended. Linda, unbothered by my concerns, continued. "Hey, I've got a great idea. We're off next weekend, right? How about doing some individual training and having a barbecue for lunch?" "Barbecue? Sounds fun." I showed interest in the cheerful plan, and Linda, eyes sparkling. "If we invite the Wednesday coach, Karen might come too," she said. "What do you mean?" "I think Karen came today specifically to see the coach. The Wednesday coach was helping out today, right? She must have come secretly from her husband." "Definitely." Linda spoke openly, to which I gestured for silence with a finger to my lips. "Let's leave others' romantic affairs alone. Even if it's about cheating, what are we going to do by confirming it?" I asked. "Just curious. I just want to check. Besides, she might not even come," Linda replied nonchalantly. While discussing this, we headed to the restroom and almost bumped into the woman with the sweet scent. Speak of the devil. "Karen, We were just discussing having a self-training session next weekend since it's off and doing a barbecue lunch. Would you like to come? Linda invited her immediately. I have work on weekends. I just happened to make it today. And Karen, as expected, declined. We're inviting the Wednesday coach too, and it'll be a chance to meet mothers who usually can't come on weekends. Mary, you're coming, right? Linda persisted. Yeah, I'll come, I answered softly. Then Karen asked, will you and your husband be attending together? Unexpectedly addressing me, which caught me a bit off guard. Yes, I responded briefly. Karen laughed and said, then I'll adjust my work schedule, and vanished in the direction opposite the court, her long hair fluttering behind her. Just what was she here for? Linda remarked, and it seemed Karen had left without meeting her child or James. When we returned to the court, my husband had somehow returned and was packing up my camera tripod. Did Donald do well? He asked cheerfully, but as he bent down to fold the tripod, that sweet scent hit me, and my eyes widened. Yes, this was the scent. There were days when my husband returned home late carrying a faint trace of this perfume. When I asked, is that perfume? Were you at a club or something? He had hastily replied, it was a business entertainment. I had no choice. That scent hadn't reappeared after that, but he had come home carrying a mix of different smells, probably having sprayed some deodorizer. Now, I realized the fragrance was so distinct because he had been with that woman. Karen's target wasn't the coach, but my husband. The anger in me surged at the thought of that woman asking if we would come as a couple next weekend and then saying she'd adjust her work when I said yes. I considered confronting my husband to make him confess, but I doubted he would admit anything. Our marriage was already cold, and I was confident I could win custody, so divorce seemed a viable option. Yet, I couldn't forgive my husband, especially thinking he had started demanding I work to support his affair. While pondering what to do, Linda contacted me the next day. The coach suspected of being Karen's affair partner can't make it this weekend. But we're still on for the barbecue, right? Holding back my embarrassment, I told Linda what was on my mind. The affair partner might be my husband. I want to catch them and make them pay. Can you help me? I asked, to which Linda responded, what? Unforgivable. Of course, I'll help. We then included 2 other friends in our plan, making 4 of us planning the barbecue to catch evidence of the affair. We intended to set up a situation where the 2 would be alone during the barbecue preparations and secretly film them. Afterward, while the children played soccer, I would confront them. I hadn't informed James yet, deciding to see what he wanted to do once we had the evidence. Even if he wished to handle it quietly, I wasn't inclined to do so, but planned to consider it. However, the situation took an unexpected turn. On the day of the barbecue, we put our plan into action. One friend loudly mentioned that we were running out of drinks, and another suggested going shopping together. Matthew, can you go? There's a grocery store nearby. Mary's busy. Oh, Karen, can you join him? My husband and Karen exchanged glances. We'll go. Yes, we'll go. They readily accepted. After watching them rush off, I grabbed my camera to follow them, wondering if they'd hold hands, but I lost sight of them as soon as they left the park. I went to the grocery store but didn't see them, checking a convenience store on the other side just in case they weren't there either. Operation failed. I lost them. I messaged Linda. What are you doing? Never mind, we'll think of something else. Come back. Her exasperated voice came through. Returning to the park and heading towards the barbecue area, I saw James with a pale face in front of the restroom. "Are you okay?" I asked, thinking he might be unwell. "You shouldn't come here." He hastily tried to send me away. Behind James was the restroom, and through the ventilation window, I heard the mixed breaths of a man and woman. "Is it okay with your wife here?" "It's fine. She's clueless." Isn't your husband here?" "My husband won't notice. He's only interested in soccer and our son." "I'm crazy about you." "More than your wife?" "Of course. I'm only with Mary for the money. You're the one I love." The conversation was unmistakably between my husband and Karen, followed by a woman's animalistic shriek, which told me everything. I rallied Linda and the others, and before they could arrive, I stormed the restroom. The window was to a men's stall, so I aimed for it, wielding the handle of a mop at the lock. James followed me, barging into the door, and the old door quickly gave way. Inside, my husband sat on the toilet, his pants and underwear down, with Karen in the same state atop him. The faces of the two, upon seeing us, showed they hadn't grasped what was happening. Encountering such a scene of infidelity was beyond my expectations, and in the shock, my rationality slipped. "What are you doing?" I yelled, raising the mop. But before it could hit them, "Mary, calm down!" James, fearing I might kill them, stopped me, allowing the two to escape. "Stop!" I chased after them. "Wait, let's calm down and talk." James chased after me. And then Linda and the others joined, creating a chaotic scene of several half-naked men and women running around. However, the natural terrain of the park was not conducive to their escape, and my husband tripped over a tree root, tumbling down first, followed by the surprised woman who slipped on the damp ground and rolled down the slope. Linda and the others quickly captured them. After a long chase, I demanded, out of breath, "Would you care to explain what's going on?" My husband immediately apologized. "Mary, I'm so sorry. It's not what it looks like. I was wrong to give in to temptation, but it's not like you think," he said, and was confronted by the woman. "But you just told me you loved me." "With you two in that state, saying it's not what I think is a joke." "I heard your conversation in the bathroom," I muttered in a surprisingly calm voice, making my husband gasp. James tersely announced, "We're getting a divorce. Get out of the house," making the woman gasp this time. The confrontation escalated beyond any planned recording, laying bare their affair. "We're also getting a divorce, and I'll contact you later about the compensation," I said, to which my husband broke down in tears, still half naked. Leaving the scene with Linda, James, and others, I made a phone call before returning to the children. Thankfully, the barbecue area and the playground were far from the restroom, and it seemed neither the kids playing on the ground nor the adults preparing the barbecue noticed the commotion. As we continued the barbecue preparations as if nothing had happened, the sound of police vehicles approached from afar. I later learned that a man and a woman had been arrested for causing a disturbance in the park while exposed. Facing public indecency charges, I couldn't help but smile secretly. The phone call I made before returning to the barbecue was, of course, a report, but screams from a passing family must have meant others had reported it too. Linda, who had suggested the barbecue, seemed more upset than I was. "Mary, I'm sorry. I never thought suggesting a barbecue would lead to this." She blamed herself, but I reassured her. "It's not the barbecue's fault, and besides, I asked you to carry out the plan," apologizing for dragging her into this. Eventually, through a lawyer friend of Linda's, I demanded alimony and compensation from my husband and got a divorce. The house was allocated to us in the property division. My husband, arrested for public indecency, was too despondent to resist our demands. Though Donald was a bit down, realizing our lives wouldn't change much. "Got it. But I'll help out more from now on," he said. James faced a tougher battle, fighting for custody in court. I had assumed the father would easily win custody given the mother's affair, but the legal battle was expected to drag on. Still, James's son continued playing soccer, and the mothers came together to support the team members. Despite modern-day weakening community ties, the strength of our community bonds felt unchanged. Yet, this incident of infidelity will likely go down as the worst in team history. It's a sore spot, but as long as Linda and the others are here, I'm determined to keep going. My mother-in-law, Patricia, prides herself on being from the city and has a habit of picking on me for my rural background. For instance, whenever I cook for Patricia, she never misses a chance to make snide remarks, even about the smallest things. "If your mother was around, she would have taught you properly," she would say. My parents passed away early, and not having a family home has also become a target for Patricia's sarcasm. Patricia, who loves anything flashy, goes to concerts every month in expensive clothes. "Have you never been to a concert? Oh, I suppose you wouldn't have that in the countryside." She'd mock my rural upbringing like that. While I understood cultural differences and tried to be patient, things got worse as my daughter Sarah grew up and started to echo Patricia's backhanded comments. "Mom, what does clumsy mean?" "Clumsy? Yeah. Grandma said you're a clumsy woman and that I shouldn't end up like that." "Is it bad not to fold your clothes?" In our household, we hang shirts and such in the closet right after ironing, which I thought was a pretty standard way of storing them, just like my friends and family do. "Grandma says letting robots do the cleaning means you're a failure as a mom." If using a robot cleaner makes you a failed mom, then a lot of people must be failing, right? It's one thing to feel that way yourself, but teaching it to your granddaughter as if it's wrong. "Grandma said if I end up like you, I won't get married, and Dad is just pitiful." Trying to turn my daughter against me like that felt extremely unpleasant. Finally, Patricia offered to take my daughter for the summer to re-educate her from scratch. Because she always talks bad about me, my daughter doesn't like her much. I've never spoken ill of Patricia to my daughter. But I guess kids know who they can trust. "Is it bad to say I dislike Grandma? She has a bad breath," my daughter confessed to me in a tiny, guilty voice. When my daughter expressed reluctance to visit my husband's family, I asked my husband, Stephen, to talk to Patricia. "Maybe there's a point to what Mom is saying. It might be good for her to stay with Grandma for a while," he suggested. I didn't tell him that she didn't want to go because she dislikes Patricia. What's the point of being parents if they just do whatever their kids want? Mom must be lonely too. It wouldn't hurt to let her have her way for once. Mom gets scary when she's angry, and now I'll be the one getting yelled at. He criticized, showing no intention of protecting our daughter. I was growing tired of a husband who would cower before his mother. Still, I kept my patience for the sake of my daughter's father. When I finally mustered the courage to call Patricia and decline. "What are you talking about? You must have put some bad ideas in her head," she screamed hysterically over the phone. I wanted to retort that she was the one doing the indoctrinating, but I kept quiet and listened instead. The volume of her voice was so intense that I could see my daughter next to me with tears in her eyes, trembling. I could never leave my daughter with Patricia in such a state. I was the only one who could protect her. With that resolution, I calmly told Patricia, "I understand. I cannot leave my daughter with someone like you, who try to control her children and grandchildren by raising voice. If you insist on this, please feel free to cut ties with us. I will never allow Sarah to go there. Although I was honestly scared, it was my best attempt to protect my daughter. What did you say? How dare you say such a thing? Coming from a tacky countryside. I'm cutting ties with you. Don't ever come to our house again. The phone call ended with a loud click. Staring at the receiver, I muttered to myself, I said it. I actually said it. What's going to happen now? But more than feeling anxious, a sense of relief washed over me. It was over. The ties with Patricia were severed. Looking at my daughter with teary eyes, Grandma won't be coming to our house anymore, I said with a smile. Mom, thank you. My daughter cried and clung to me. Hugging her, I reassured myself that I hadn't done anything wrong. When I reported about the phone call to my husband, he fell silent for a while, his face looking as if he had tasted something bitter. Good job. I'm sorry for putting you through that. He offered me words of appreciation. After that, we enjoyed a peaceful life as a family of 3 for a while. The situation took a drastic turn with one phone call. Patricia had a severe accident, falling down the stairs at her home, breaking her thigh bone, and was urgently hospitalized. Despite being told to sever ties, we couldn't ignore such a severe injury. Our family rushed to the hospital where Patricia was admitted. Seeing Patricia after 3 years, she looked thinner and smaller, almost bedridden and in need of care. The first thing she said upon seeing me was, Emily, I'm sorry for worrying you. She apologized, which was unbelievable. Had she changed? It was incredible to think she could be concerned about her son's wife despite her pain. No, Patricia, please get well soon. While I was bewildered by the dramatic change, my husband, his sister Ashley, and I discussed how to take care of Patricia after her discharge. Hey, Emily. My husband began. Mom's in that condition now. Can we forget the past and consider living together? But what about 3 years ago? Do you really think Patricia has changed? If you can't believe in Mom, then you can leave. I could ignore my husband's outburst calmly. Next to us, Ashley was laughing. Ashley has always had a rocky relationship with my husband, often clashing over various things. Ashley's supportive attitude made it easier to dismiss my husband's words. The real question was whether Patricia had truly changed. If she could approach my daughter and me with a renewed attitude, I, having no parents, would not mind living with her. One more time. Let's trust her one more time. I decided to live with Patricia. Patricia's reaction when we told her about the decision to live together was overwhelming. Thank you. Emily, to forgive me after what I said, you must be an angel. She clasped her hands together as if praying. It felt exaggerated, but it was hard to believe she was the same person who had screamed at me over the phone. As Patricia's discharge approached, I was at the hospital alone, preparing. One day, as I was about to enter her room, I heard Patricia and Ashley's voices echoing down the hall. See, Mom? Didn't I tell you it was good to do as I say? Truly. If you hadn't lent her wisdom, we would have had to give up on Sarah. Now, it's all about Emily. What complaints did she have this time? We really fooled her, didn't we? Saying I needed care when it's the least serious kind. Ha ha ha. I did act well, didn't I? Pretending to be bedridden. And Stephen was easy to convince. With Sarah around, it's all under Mom's control. I was trembling with anger at the shocking revelation. The apology, the kindness, it was all a lie to deceive me. The claim of needing care was exaggerated, just a pretext for us to live together. Patricia thought she could have her son and granddaughter by her side if only we lived together. I couldn't let them have their way. For my daughter's sake. But what could I do? Feeling helpless, I returned home and told my husband everything about Patricia and Ashley's conversation. I said that living together was impossible. "What nonsense are you talking about? Didn't you see Mom's apology? She was crying, for heaven's sake. You're going to bully an old woman pretending to be bedridden? Are you a devil?" Even when I explained that the care she claimed to need was minor and she wasn't bedridden, Stephen wouldn't listen. "It might be minor now, but what about later? She's looking forward to living with us, so why not just do it? How cold can you be? Just leave." It was hopeless. No more discussions would change anything. I wasn't believed. That's when I took out the divorce papers. "Is that so? Good for you. I'll gladly divorce you. Do you think you can make it on your own? A contract worker for a big company, unstable as you are." I had changed jobs to focus on our family at Stephen's request. He was a salaried employee, and I became a contract worker. He had wanted it, yet now he scorned me for it. I felt no love for him anymore. Then he delivered the final blow. "Without a family home, do you really think you can raise our daughter all by yourself?" So, Stephen too. It was clear. He had never been pleased about my lack of a family home. "I'll tell you this, I'm not raising the child. I won't pay a dime in child support." Too much. To abandon his own daughter. My hatred for Stephen grew. I decided then to execute my revenge against Stephen. "Understood. I don't need child support. I will raise our daughter. But in return, you and your family must cut all ties with us." "Of course. Not only you. I don't need such a daughter either." "Then, could you put that in writing?" "Why go that far?" "Fine. I'll write it." "Then write exactly as I say. I, the father, and including my mother and sister, will have no further involvement with my daughter, Sarah. Write it quickly." As I read aloud the prepared document. "You had it ready, huh?" Stephen complained but finished writing the documents for the affidavit and to have it notarized. I immediately filed the divorce papers. Then, I proceeded to have the affidavit notarized. Upon returning home. "Where have you been?" Stephen had been drinking alcohol while I was out. Such a weak man, unable to stay sober at a time like this. My love for him cooled even more. "Where have you been? I'm asking you. Hey, we're not done talking yet. You're the one who started drinking before we even finished our conversation. And I'm not done talking either. In fact, this is just the beginning." "The beginning? What are you talking about? I did you a favor by marrying someone as unattractive as you." While waiting for the drunken Stephen to quiet down, I hurriedly packed some essentials for my daughter and myself into a suitcase. After a while, "Listen to this," I said, taking out my mobile phone and playing a voice file. The conversation I had overheard outside Patricia and Ashley's hospital room was shockingly impactful. Unable to enter the room immediately, I found myself sitting weakly on a bench in a nearby park, trying to process what I had just heard. Patricia had used her illness as a ploy to live with us. The plan was to kick me out after moving in together. Even with these facts, I had no family home to return to. I cried alone. feeling pitiful and longing for my parents more than ever at that moment. While I was wiping my nose with a tissue after a good cry. "Excuse me, you're Patricia's son's wife, aren't you?" I looked up to see Betty, a patient in the bed opposite Patricia's. A dignified and kind elderly woman who had always been nice to me and my daughter. "Ah, Betty." "Hi." I wondered if she saw me crying. "Are you okay?" Did she really see me crying? "I know it's none of my business, but you heard that conversation earlier, didn't you?" I was there too. It was just awful. To my surprise, Betty had seen me listening to the conversation from outside the hallway. Concerned about me staggering out with a pale face, she had followed me. She had waited for me to stop crying before speaking to me. How kind. She mentioned that she had been hearing awful things about me from Patricia all along. However, she couldn't believe I was the person Patricia described. "I pride myself on being a good judge of character. You're attentive and kind, and I've seen how you've cared for Patricia as if she were your own mother. Hey, would you let me help you?" We exchanged contact information, and she told me to reach out if I needed anything. A few days later, I received a voice file from Betty. Hearing it left me astonished. I decided to cut all ties with Stephen's entire family. Hearing about Stephen relinquishing custody, I decided to proceed without giving him the details. After finishing all the paperwork, I played the voice file in front of Stephen. "So, you'll be living with your grandchildren after discharge, huh?" "That's right. My son insisted on it." "Is this Mom's voice? Why? When did I insist?" Stephen was flustered. "Indeed, you never said you insisted on living together." "But, you don't get along well with your son's wife, right?" "Well, she'll probably leave eventually, running away from my sarcasm and spending habits." "Mom's always been a big spender." "Is that Ashley's voice?" "Spending habits." Stephen was shaken by the shocking truth. Watching his drunkenness fade was a spectacle. "So, you didn't really want to live with your son, it was all just a sham?" "Right. Listen to this." Ashley's high-pitched laughter continued. "Mom said she doesn't even know how much she's taken from her son's wallet." "Hey, you shouldn't say that." "Why not?" "Mom, you used the savings Dad had made for Stephen without telling him, right? That's terrible, isn't it?" "Poor thing." The recording ended there. Stephen, unable to speak from shock, looked pitiable. "I felt like money was missing before, but I never thought Mom was the culprit. My dad saved that money for me? I never knew." Patricia regularly attended concerts and updated her wardrobe with the seasons. I had always wondered about the source of Patricia's funds. The revelation was shocking. But it made me decide I didn't want her anywhere near my daughter. That's why I had the affidavit written. I divorced you for such a mother, and now I won't see my daughter anymore?" "Wait, we haven't completed the process yet, have we? Give me back that affidavit." "I've submitted both. It's too late. Earlier, if you had listened to me even a little, our future might have been different. We could have disowned Patricia and lived as a family of 3. But you fully trusted Patricia. Do you understand how I felt, being completely disbelieved in the end?" "I'm sorry, really sorry, Emily." Leaving a weeping Stephen behind, I left the house. Now free, I had no financial support from Stephen. No family to rely on. Could I make ends meet as a contract worker? A few days earlier, I had confided to my boss, Dorothy, that I might get divorced, sharing the broad details. She was a woman who had always guided me warmly, despite my contract status, and I respected her greatly. We often shared personal stories, and she adored my daughter. Yet, I was a contract worker. I braced for the possibility of my contract being terminated due to my uncertain situation. If that happened, I was prepared to do anything, even enter the nightlife business. I made up my mind and asked my boss for some time. So, Emily, you mentioned you don't have a family home, right? Being divorced and jobless would be really hard. The response from my boss was unexpected. How about taking a leap and becoming a full-time employee? Actually, we were planning to offer you a full-time position once Sarah's upbringing reached a certain stage. As a full-timer, you'd be on flex but could work remotely 70% of the time, allowing you to be with Sarah while working. Me? I thought, being without family, my contract might even be terminated. We wouldn't terminate your contract over something like that. Plus, we truly value your work. Though it's remote, you'll be a full-time employee, so we expect you to continue working hard. I will. I'll work really hard. I started crying as if a tightly wound string had snapped. Now I could live with my daughter. We were told about bonuses and housing allowances. With that, we were able to rent an apartment with an auto-locking door for the two of us. I haven't contacted Stephen since the day I left the house. However, I've been continuously updated about how badly Stephen and Patricia have fallen. Surprisingly, Ashley, who had little contact with us before, started reaching out. Ashley apparently had been struggling with Patricia living nearby, and had wanted to push her onto Stephen at some point. According to Ashley, Patricia had indeed planned to drive me out after moving in together, and she was shocked that I had already divorced Stephen before they could execute their plan. Furthermore, not taking in the grandchildren as planned led to a big fight between Stephen and Patricia. Hearing that the affidavit had been written and notarized infuriated Patricia. It seems grandchildren were more important to her than her son. Additionally, on the first day of living together, Patricia touched Stephen's wallet without him knowing, which, once discovered, led to a severe scolding since Stephen had been suspicious and monitoring her. Afterwards, Stephen transitioned to cashless transactions. Stephen no longer kept cash in the house. Patricia was left wanting in a wallet devoid of money. A little of the savings for Stephen from his father-in-law remained, but Stephen confiscated it all. Patricia was left with a monthly allowance of $100. Patricia, now in an unfamiliar place without friends, lives a lonely life with her son, who she doesn't get along with, and requires mild care. It's sad she can no longer afford her beloved concerts, but honestly, I don't care anymore since we've cut ties. I consider this my completed revenge. A bit of an update afterwards. Living with my daughter led to some happy changes. My daughter has started to come alive. Being freed from her oppressive father and grandmother seemed to have made a big difference, as her smile has become more frequent, and she enjoys our conversations during meals more than ever. Though I've become a full-time employee, resulting in a lower income, she understands. The water's still running, Mom. We need to save. Saving has become somewhat enjoyable. Although we had a higher total income before the divorce, I had less money at my disposal, so now it feels like we have more freedom. Mom, when I grow up, I'll make you so happy. Her sweet words make me cry every time. We can't afford luxuries, but we can enjoy eating out on weekends. Everything tastes better when we're together, and the world seems brighter. I feel happier more often now. Despite the hardships, I'm truly glad I got divorced. Hey Barbara, can't you reconsider? Daniel is still in middle school. To leave him and move abroad. Barbara, the wife of her son, tilted her head slightly and frowned as if troubled. Daniel is plain and slow, and to be honest, it feels like he's not even our child. He seems to get along with you in an odd way, so please take good care of him. It's one thing to speak ill of oneself, but to say such words about her own son, Daniel, it made her tremble with anger. However, those feelings were suppressed, never turning into words, remaining in her heart. Daniel and I watched the car carrying the departing son and his family until it was out of sight, then looked up at the orange tree in the empty garden. As I wondered, Daniel pointed out that there were still a few left. My son Charles and his family had taken many oranges for memories, but a few remained on the branches. From a distance, it was hard to see clearly, but some of the fruit seemed to be slightly damaged. Does that mean they didn't want those oranges? As it got colder with a slight breeze, I suggested to Daniel that we go inside, but he shook his head slightly and turned to me, his face overflowing with tears. Dad and Mom don't want me because I'm slow. It's okay. You don't need to worry. I was furious. I closed my eyes, pondering what to do with this anger, and then pondered some more, firmly resolving to affirm and raise this child positively. My name is Susan. Lately, I've lost my appetite and have been feeling unwell. When I consulted a doctor about my unclear health issues, I was advised to get more nutrition. Even with the vague advice to get more nutrition, I wondered what exactly I should eat, considering going to a steakhouse every day. But that would never be sustainable with any amount of living expenses, so I decided to make balanced meals every day. No, that would be too much hassle to keep up. So, I decided to make it a point to eat the oranges planted in my garden. Honestly, I never really cared for the oranges planted in the yard before. I hadn't paid much attention to them every year. Usually, I left the fruit for the birds to eat or just cleaned up whatever fell to the ground, but this year, after seeing a TV infomercial about easy-to-use pruning shears, I was full of motivation and bought them. Just when I was determined to start picking the oranges, I ended up hurting my back. It was supposed to be easy according to the sales pitch, but apparently not for someone with a bad back. If there's a house in a quiet residential area known for its large orange tree, that would be ours. Our orange tree has years when it bears lots of fruit and years when it doesn't, and this year, the branches are laden with oranges. It's just the year I was determined to eat a lot of them. But what to do with my injured back? Just when I was thinking that, my son and his family came to visit at the perfect time. When I explained the situation to my son, he immediately said, "All right, I'll pick them." And he rushed out to the garden. My son and my grandson, Christopher, were using a long-handled pruning shear to joyfully pick oranges from the branches. "Wow, Christopher! You got a big one!" My son skillfully cut the oranges from the branches and had his son pick them up. As for me, I was sitting by the window overlooking the orange tree, staring at a chessboard with my other grandson, Daniel. Daniel was looking intently at the chess pieces laid out on the board, lost in thought, seemingly oblivious to the noise of Charles and Christopher gathering oranges in the garden. It seems I was so focused that I didn't even hear Charles and Christopher making noise while gathering oranges in the garden. When Christopher, the older brother, quietly placed an orange beside Daniel and then turned to me, he put his index finger to his lips in a gesture for silence. He didn't want to disturb his brother, who was deeply engrossed in the game. That was the kind of kindness Christopher had. "Charles, lunch is ready." "Yeah, thanks. We'll be right there." Perhaps one reason my son and his wife visit my house several times a month is because my husband had passed away early. My son's wife, Barbara, is a down-to-earth woman who naturally takes over the kitchen in our house to prepare lunches for everyone. Daniel and I were invited to join them for the meal, but Daniel remained silent, staring at the chessboard, unwilling to move. when I gently touched Daniel's shoulder. "Huh?" He looked up in surprise, saying, "Grandma, will you play chess with me after lunch?" "Of course. Let's go." Barbara, Charles, and Christopher were enjoying their meal while watching TV, laughing together. The TV featured a special on a high school soccer player belonging to a famous high school, and Charles pointed at the TV, tapping Christopher on the shoulder. "Hey, look, Christopher. The high school you're going to is on TV." Christopher has always been athletically gifted, shining in every game he plays. Daniel took up soccer as well, but wasn't quite as skilled. He couldn't outshine his brother. Barbara looked at Christopher with joy and said, "I heard from a friend that Christopher is quite famous among middle schoolers. He's really good at soccer. It seems his name has even spread to other schools." She looked even happier than Christopher, the subject of the conversation. I couldn't help but clear my throat and glance at Daniel's expression. He looked somewhat lonely, slowly slurping up his pasta one strand at a time. Now that Christopher has a scholarship for soccer in high school, it's Daniel's turn. With a promising brother like Christopher, Daniel will surely improve quickly too. Right. Christopher and Daniel, let's play soccer in the park after lunch. But Charles, isn't Daniel going to continue with chess? Oh, right. You haven't finished yet? I informed Charles that the game was still ongoing. Then, I suggested if they'd like to join us in chess, though playing soccer is also great. Charles and Barbara exchanged glances and started laughing together. You're joking, right? Playing chess by the window on such a sunny day? What an unhealthy hobby. Charles, that's a bit harsh on Susan's only hobby. Both of them seemed to mock me and Daniel, but I didn't want to argue and risk spoiling our family relationship, so I nodded along and started washing up in the kitchen. I peeled the freshly picked oranges, placed them on a plate, and brought them out. Christopher and Daniel started eating them, laughing together. I discreetly approached Charles and tapped him lightly on the head from behind. Hey, you know Daniel isn't much into sports like soccer, right? He enjoys playing chess, so don't say weird things. Did I say something wrong? Charles, seeming neither concerned nor remorseful, took the ball and went to the nearby park with Christopher and Barbara. Left behind, Daniel and I returned to our seats by the window. Sitting in front of the sunlit chessboard, Daniel casually looked up at the orange tree. There are still a lot of oranges left, huh? Yes, do you want some more? Daniel shook his head slightly and then turned his gaze back to the chessboard, refocusing his attention. He has a strong ability to concentrate. At this point, I can't predict how Daniel will grow up, but I have a feeling he'll take a path quite different from his brother Christopher's. And so years passed since then. On a sunny day, Daniel and I were again eating oranges picked from the garden. After Charles finished bringing in few small boxes to my house, he stood by the window with a gentle smile, looking up at the orange tree. Sorry, Mom, please take good care of Daniel. I pondered over how to respond. While caressing the oranges picked from the garden, I sighed. Christopher, having been recognized for his soccer talent at his new high school, was scouted by an overseas club team. I, knowing little about soccer, couldn't grasp the significance of the team that scouted my grandson. But when I heard Charles was ready to quit his job and move abroad, I realized this was a big deal. With assistance promised by the scouting team for their life abroad, Barbara was already excited about the overseas move. Every time we met, she would say, "I'm really interested in foreign cultures." She was already studying the culture of the country through books. I had assumed the whole family would move abroad, but they asked me to raise Daniel alone in my house. Christopher was initially surprised and was opposed to the idea. Think about it, Christopher. Wouldn't Daniel be happier living here with Grandma than in an unfamiliar environment? Don't you think so? But Barbara convinced him by saying so. And today, after moving all of Daniel's belongings into my house, they were set to leave on an afternoon flight. Daniel looked sad as he checked the contents of a cardboard box filled with his clothes. Charles and Christopher, knowing they wouldn't return to this house for a while, picked many oranges from the garden tree as a final memory. As the tree's branches became bare with each orange picked, it started to look naked. Daniel, Grandma might not feel well sometimes, so help her out, okay? And work hard on your studies too. Charles said this to Daniel as he cheerfully bid farewell. Though I knew it was already decided, I couldn't help but pull Barbara aside to a spot away from Christopher and Daniel and started speaking in a low voice. Hey Barbara, can't you reconsider? Daniel is still attending middle school. To leave him and move abroad. Barbara tilted her head slightly and frowned as if troubled. Daniel is plain and slow, and to be honest, it feels like he's not even our child. Since he seems to get along with you in a strange way, please take good care of him. It's one thing to speak ill of oneself, but to say such words about your own son, Daniel, made me tremble with anger. However, those feelings remained pressed deep into my heart, never turning into words. Daniel and I watched the car carrying my departing son and his family until it disappeared from view, then turned to look up at the orange tree in the empty garden. As I wondered about the tree, Daniel spoke and pointed out. There are a few left. Charles and the others had taken many oranges as memories, but a few remained on the branches. From a distance, it was unclear, but some appeared slightly damaged. Does that mean they didn't want those oranges? As the breeze grew colder, I suggested to Daniel that we go inside. He shook his head slightly and turned to me, his face overflowing with tears. Dad and Mom don't want me because I'm slow. It's okay. There's nothing to worry about. I was furious. I closed my eyes, pondering what to do with this anger, then resolved to affirm and nurture this child positively. 9 years have passed since then. Beside the chessboard by the window, I looked up at the orange tree in the garden. The birds know best when the oranges are ripe, pecking at the fruit when it's time. I used this as a cue to start harvesting. Stepping out from the window to the garden, I picked a low-hanging fruit. It was free of insect damage and had a nice color. After the doorbell rang, I called out loudly, "It's open!" To my surprise, I was greeted by an unexpected visitor as heavy footsteps approached. Mom, it's been a while. Where's Daniel? It's really been a long time. What brings you here all of a sudden? Well, I saw Daniel's achievements in the newspaper. Isn't it amazing? Finally, he feels like our son. As I sighed heavily and sat back down in front of the chessboard, Barbara asked, Where's Daniel? He's reading a chess magazine in his room. He's a pro now, so try not to disturb him. Since our parting 9 years ago, Daniel and I played chess daily, and he gradually showed his talent, eventually becoming a professional chess player. The journey was tough, but we persevered together. Though he never said it, Daniel might have wanted to prove something to the parents who left him. Recently, Daniel won a major title as a pro chess player, making headlines. I hadn't told Charles or Barbara, but they must have found out and hurried back. Soon, Daniel came out of his room. He had grown taller and more robust over the 9 years, the perfect picture of health. Charles, seeing his son all grown up, said, It's been a while. Saying this, he put his arm around Daniel's shoulder, and from behind, Barbara also. You've become so admirable. Smiled tenderly, as if completely contented. Now I'm willing to live with you. Now that you're a respectable adult, It's your turn to help out your dad and mom with their lives. I'm apparently not your child, so I have no obligation to help. The conversation sounded almost like a comedy, making me burst out laughing. Charles, tapping Daniel on the shoulder, looked puzzled. It seemed like the words were completely unexpected. The audacity to offer to live together after 9 years was astonishing. What's wrong? Are you being stubborn after this long reunion? You must have been lonely living with Grandma all this time. Don't worry, we'll live together from now on. What are you talking about? Live together? I'm not a child anymore. Why should I live with you? Barbara, pulling Charles away from the frozen embrace, said. What are you saying? We haven't been able to contact Christopher for years, and our life is in shambles. We've been living off Christopher's soccer income, and now we have no savings. What does that have to do with me? After all the effort we put into supporting Christopher's soccer, he suddenly disappeared. We didn't know what to do. It's impossible for us to start working now, and you're the only one we can rely on. If you're looking for Christopher, he's here in this house. Hey, Christopher. At Daniel's casual call, Christopher appeared from the kitchen, wearing a cute cat apron, holding an orange, and skillfully peeling it with a knife. What's up? Christopher, with an innocent expression, surprised Charles and Barbara by being there. Christopher, why are you here? Seems like there's a lot we need to talk about, so just sit down and wait. I'll cut some oranges for us. As Christopher served the oranges on a plate to Charles and Barbara, I prepared coffee for everyone. Christopher began to share that, although he was initially enthusiastic about his soccer career and contract with an overseas club, his experiences abroad gradually sparked an interest in becoming an interpreter. Upon hearing Christopher's dream, Charles, being an interpreter won't earn you as much as a professional soccer player. That's not acceptable. Dismissed it without even listening. Disappointed by his parents, who seemed only to care about the money he could bring in rather than his dreams, Christopher lost interest in soccer. He secretly contacted Daniel and me and returned to our town. Now, he's working at a language school while studying to become an interpreter. After explaining this, Christopher sat up straight and faced Charles and Barbara directly. I'm truly grateful that you took me abroad for soccer. But I've found a dream I want to pursue more than soccer. If you're going to deny that, I'd rather you not be involved in my life. Not be involved? Do you know how much we sacrificed to support your soccer career abroad? He reflected on how much time he had sacrificed as a father to support Christopher's soccer. He passionately explained how much he and Barbara, Christopher's mother, had hoped and expected to make Christopher a top soccer player. Christopher, your dad quit his job to support your soccer. And now, you're giving that up for a job as an interpreter? It's not too late to go back to the club team. Right, that's a good idea. If life gets tough until you succeed in soccer, Daniel can support us. He's a famous chess player now, after all. The conversation seemed somewhat detached from reality. Perhaps even Charles and Barbara realized the absurdity of their words. Despite understanding the unfairness of their situation, fear of not being able to survive without such plans seemed to drive their irrational statements. The reason no one spoke up wasn't because the discussion had concluded, but rather because the end point of the conversation had become unclear. I poured coffee into each of the empty cups. The scent of coffee filled the living room, which was enveloped in silence. Daniel quietly shifted his gaze to the chessboard by the window. After Dad and Mom left for abroad, I played chess almost every day. Left for abroad? That makes us sound like the bad guys. Do you think you would have been happy if you had come with us? You're right. If I had lived with parents like you, I might have lost sight of what I was striving for, just like Christopher did. This provocative stance immediately angered Barbara. She stood up and lunged at Daniel, prompting me to quickly step in front of him to block her. Barbara glared at me and shouted at Daniel.
"Move! How dare you speak to your parents like that?"
Speak to your parents? It's been 9 years. 9 years! You didn't come back to see Daniel even once in all that time. Can you imagine how long these years have been for him?
We are their parents, you know? Can you believe that children wouldn't help their parents? Christopher and Daniel are saying they're abandoning us when we're in trouble.
Charles, not wanting to be outdone by Barbara's intensity, stood up to face me as well.
Exactly. It's irresponsible not to help when your parents are in trouble. It's a child's duty.
You're talking about duty? I mentioned I was feeling a bit unwell 9 years ago, remember? Yet, you chose to ignore that and went abroad. It's shameful to change your tune when it suits you.
But that's because...
Charles mumbled awkwardly, his gaze darting around, not sure what to do. Christopher approached Daniel with a calm voice and apologized. I'm really sorry for everything. Dad, we've decided we want to cut ties with you and Mom. Can you just leave us alone from now on? Don't joke around. What do you take your parents for? Use us when convenient and discard us when done? You're going to abandon us irresponsibly while we're struggling with our lives? Involuntarily, I found myself shouting.
That's not it.
My voice might have echoed throughout the quiet neighborhood, possibly heard by the neighbors. But I couldn't worry about the neighbors at such a moment. I grasped Christopher and Daniel's hands firmly in mine. Holding them by my sides, I could feel them trembling slightly. Despite their calm demeanor, they were frightened by their biological parents' sudden visit. I knew I had to express the anger on their behalf. It was time to voice the feelings Christopher and Daniel had harbored towards their parents. It's the adults' job to work for their children, not the other way around.
We're the parents. We are a family.
After abandoning a young Daniel and selfishly deciding on Christopher's potential, like you have any rights to say that. How are you their family? At my words, Charles's eyes widened in shock, and he reached out to grab my collar. Instinctively, I braced for any potential violence by curling up defensively. However, Daniel quickly stepped in front of me and effortlessly lifted Charles, sending him spinning through the air. And before you know it, Charles was lying on the ground, looking up at Daniel. In a state of shock and lying down, Charles is too astonished to say anything. He probably never imagined that the once frail Daniel could throw him. I won't allow anyone to harm our family. Being completely thrown can make a person feel utterly defeated. Charles, lying on the ground and looked down upon by Daniel, must have felt a deep sense of embarrassment. Barbara rushed to Charles with a worried look, but he got up, saying, I'm fine. However, the aggression he had shown earlier had vanished. Voices from outside could be heard. It seemed the neighbors had gathered, alerted by the shouting from our house. Charles and Barbara exchanged glances and hurriedly left the house, their departure marked by their pitiful retreat. Their future, after such a humiliating exit, remained unknown. Relying on Christopher's income from soccer, Charles and Barbara had little in the way of qualifications or work experience, making it difficult for them to find decent employment at their age. 2 years later, Christopher successfully became an interpreter. His work took him to various places, keeping him busy. Daniel continued to diligently study and practice chess, striving to master the game. Both brothers excelled in their respective fields. As for me, with my grandchildren grown and independent, I started teaching at a children's chess club, aiming to nurture their interests. Having loved chess since childhood, I had once dreamed of becoming a professional player. Despite joining chess clubs in middle and high school and competing in numerous matches, I recognized my limitations and eventually lost faith in my own talent. Even though friends and family encouraged me, saying I had talent and should keep at it, I lost the ability to believe in myself. Having experienced the pain of not accepting my own immaturity, regretting giving up on my dreams, and feeling a tightness in my chest, I had a strong desire to convey something important to the children in my chess class. After all, I had successfully raised Daniel, an exceptional professional player. Although it's often challenging, I find fulfillment in guiding each child, focusing on their individual hearts and potential. Christopher and Daniel live harmoniously with me, sharing these values. I deeply respect Christopher and Daniel, each thriving and fulfilling their dreams. One day, after a long while, Christopher and Daniel offered to pick oranges in our garden. As I've gotten older, reaching for the high oranges has become more of a chore, so I was grateful for the help. Christopher stretched the pruning shears as high as he could, trying to gather all the oranges for my chess club students. "This is quite the tedious task," I remarked with a smile, solving chess problems by the window. I remembered how I used to challenge Daniel with my own chess problems, but now, as a professional player, he would present me with puzzles and watch amused as I pondered over them. "This one's tough." It's a joyful realization that Daniel, whom I taught chess, has far surpassed me in skill. Hearing laughter, I saw Christopher and Daniel gathering oranges with joy. "Grandma? What's up?" "There's something I've always wondered about every year." Daniel pointed to an orange located at the very top of the tree. "That branch is always out of reach with the pruning shears, so picking from it is forbidden. Shouldn't we pick all of them for your chess students?" I stopped Christopher from fetching a ladder from the shed. "Leaving a few oranges on the tree keeps it from looking completely bare." I chuckled. "Leave that one. It's meant to be left there." I used to look at the remaining oranges after Dad and Mom left us and wonder if I was like those unwanted fruits. Daniel's face showed a hint of sadness. I remained silent, focusing on the chess problem. "Not just for oranges, but there's an old custom of leaving one fruit on the tree instead of picking them all." Daniel came over to me and watched as I pondered over a chess problem he had created. His expression bore the same youthful look as it did back then. "There's an old custom of leaving one fruit on the tree as a token of gratitude and hope for future harvests." Gratitude and hope. Moreover, it's left as food for the birds to help them through the harsh winter. The last remaining orange isn't unwanted, it's actually the most special one. Special. I see, so that's how it was. Daniel whispered softly, and I gently stroked his head. Daniel, who has grown quite a bit, doesn't try to escape from my hands and allows me to continue stroking him without resistance. Well, what to do now? This chess problem presented by such a dear grandchild. It's too difficult for me to understand at all. Maintaining my dignity as a respected chess figure in his eyes was crucial, yet finding the solution seemed impossible in the moment. As I pondered, stroking Daniel's head, I hoped for a way out of this predicament, wishing for more such special moments to continue indefinitely. "I'll give you a kid with developmental disabilities," Scarlett, my son's arrogant wife, said to me. A strong hatred for her stirring up inside me. She doesn't love her own children. She only sees them as tools for making money. My anger towards her reached its peak, and I decided to take my grandchild away from her. "Then I'll raise her." I set the condition that she would never be involved with her child again, and arranged for an adoption. 10 years later, Scarlett, triggered by a certain event, came to regret her choices. My name is Grace. I work as a proofreader. A proofreader is someone who checks for errors in manuscripts and layout prints at publishing companies, like for books and magazines. My husband, Henry, is a film director. He's made a name for himself as a capable director, having worked on a wide range of projects from animations to suspense and horror films. We, a creative couple, had one son. He grew up splendidly, found a wonderful wife, and got married. They were blessed with children. But soon after the marriage, our son tragically died in an accident. Losing our only son, Henry and I were engulfed in sorrow. But perhaps it was even harder for Scarlett, our son's wife. At the young age of 33, she became a widow and raised her 2 daughters by herself. Moreover, the girls were twins, and the younger one, Mia, showed signs of developmental disabilities. Her sister is Emma. At the time, Mia's condition was diagnosed as mild, but as she grew, her symptoms became more evident, and now she attends a special education class at the same elementary school as Emma. Raising a child with disabilities is no ordinary task. Especially for Scarlett, who lost her husband so early, her days must be incredibly hard. Of course, my husband and I try to support her in every way we can. She has a job, so during times like evenings when she can't take care of the kids, we take them in. Still, the hardships she's faced since our son's death are unimaginable. I am grateful to her. She truly cared for her children. Until she became obsessed with a certain man. Her personality changed after meeting this man. Grace, I'm taking Emma to her piano class, so I'll drop Mia off at your place. I should be there in about 5 minutes. That was a sudden, unexpected call. Previously, Scarlett used to check my schedule and show consideration, but lately, it's always been abrupt. She might know her piano class schedule in advance, yet she calls out of the blue, wanting to drop off Mia without any prior discussion. It's not just inconvenient for me, but for Henry as well, who has his own work. Scarlett, I think it's admirable how much you care for Emma. But if you're going to ask us to take Mia in suddenly every time, we have our own schedules too. Wait, aren't you off today, Grace? I saw on the calendar that you have every Tuesday off this month. Scarlett knew everything about our work and home schedule, as she often brought the kids over. It felt invasive, like being monitored. There are things we can only do on our days off. Please, don't just leave the kids with us without discussing it first. It's not that we don't want to take them. It's just a bit troublesome without any prior notice. I understand. I'll be more careful from now on. There was a brief pause, and Scarlett's reply sounded listless. Accompanying her perfunctory response was a faint clicking of her tongue. Before I could respond, she abruptly ended the call. Soon after, I heard Scarlett's car parking outside. Suppressing my exasperation, I got up from my chair to head to the door. Then, I overheard an unbelievable remark from the entrance. Mia, just go on to Grandma's by yourself. From the entrance, I heard Scarlett's condescending voice speaking to Mia, leaving me shocked and speechless. Moreover, I only heard the sound of the door opening once. Meaning, Scarlett didn't even get out of the car, she just told Mia something and then drove off again. Surprised by this unbelievable situation, I hurried to the entrance and found Mia left there alone. Mia. Where's your mom? Where did she go? Mia, not understanding the situation, looked at me with a puzzled expression. I placed my hands on Mia's shoulders, asking her what happened, but she just kept staring at me, puzzled, not attempting to answer my question.
Grandma. Good evening.
Mia is in elementary school, but she's delayed in speech, only able to communicate in 2-word sentences. She can't answer complicated questions, and when bombarded with them, she tends to get stuck. At this moment, not understanding my question, Mia, contrary to my anxious mood, just smiled sweetly and continued to look at me. Mia, where did your mom go? Shopping? Piano class? Which one? When speaking to her, I know I shouldn't get emotional. If I convey words in haste, she also gets affected and may panic. I took a deep breath to calm myself and, showing my fists alternately with my hands, I tried to make it easier for Mia to choose an answer. Thanks to that, she seemed to understand the question and pointed to the right fist I held out secondly, uttering surprising words.
Piano. Went with Emma and a man.
A man. Hearing this intriguing word, I impulsively asked her more questions. Is he Mom's friend? Emma's friend?
No. Mom's favorite person.
Seeing her talk happily made my heart ache. Scarlett left a daughter behind to go to Emma's piano class with a new man. But why leave only Mia? The answer would soon become clear. That night, after piano class was over and it was getting time for Scarlett to pick Mia up, she didn't show up at our house. Fortunately, the next day was Saturday, so having Mia stay over wasn't a problem, but it was still incredibly rude. Scarlett left her with us without any notice. What's happening to her? I kept repeating these complaints in my mind while waiting with Mia for Scarlett to pick her up. Little did I know then, Scarlett's life was spiraling out of control. Hello, Grace? Sorry, but could you let Mia stay over tonight? Emma has come down with a fever. I don't want Mia to catch it, so could you look after her? It was past 9 p.m. I had finished giving Mia a shower and dinner, and was just waiting for Scarlett to pick her up when she called. Scarlett's voice on the phone didn't sound hurried, just apologetically casual. If I hadn't known the situation from Mia, I might not have doubted her words. But, having heard Mia's earlier story, I couldn't easily believe Scarlett. All right. We'll take care of her tonight. Realizing my reluctance, Henry, who was playing with Mia, turned to me and said so with a stern expression. I relayed to Scarlett that we would take care of Mia just for tonight. I understand the situation. But you knew about this sooner, right? How many hours has it been since piano class ended? Sorry. I was just about to pick her up when she started looking unwell. I'll be more careful next time. Her nonchalant reply only increased my anger. From now on, please make sure to contact us in advance. If not, we might find it difficult to take her in the future. Yes. Thank you so much. She responded sweetly and ended the call unilaterally. Dumbfounded and speechless, I returned to Mia and Henry, and that's when things got tough. Mia, how about spending today with Grandpa and Grandma? Your mom can't pick you up because she's taking care of Emma who's sick. Maybe the way I said it was not good. Mia, having already decided in her mind that she was going home, got upset when her routine was disrupted. Mia, in a state of panic, began to wander restlessly around, crying and repeating that she wanted to go home. She curled up on the spot, trying to calm herself down, but it seemed she couldn't switch off her emotions. Sitting down, then standing up, repeating this over and over, she eventually collapsed onto a nearby sofa and started to cry intensely. I'm sorry, it's my fault. It's okay. Let's just be there for Mia right now. We've encountered situations like this several times before. When she was younger, her tantrums were much worse, becoming so violent that she was uncontrollable. She would hit herself against walls or slap her hands on the floor, a far worse state compared to now. As she grew, perhaps maturing, her symptoms seemed to stabilize, now manifesting as crying intensely on the sofa. When Mia gets like this, both Henry and I stay by her side, never intervening or trying to do anything forceful. Mia, in her way of calming down, uses our hands to wipe her tears, seeking comfort through physical touch. But we don't initiate it. Mia has her own timing and needs. We've learned over these 6 years it's important to respond to her in that manner. I'm sorry. When Mia calms down, she always apologizes to us, perhaps thinking she'll be scolded for crying. Her eyes, wet with tears, stare at us, trembling with fear. At that moment, we had no idea that this behavior was a result of Scarlett's treatment. We're not mad at you. In fact, I'm sorry, Mia. I said something hard to you. Good girl, good girl. Though she might not understand my words, she seemed to read my emotions from my expression. Mia, kneeling in front of me, gently stroked my hair. Even if her words are limited, Her heart is so kind. What does a disability matter? It's just a part of who she is, her unique character. I love this gentle side of her. Thinking this and smiling, I heard Henry's voice suggesting it's time to sleep, and Mia, now ready to switch to bedtime mode, happily went with Henry to the bedroom. The next morning, a grim-faced Emma and Scarlett in a slovenly outfit arrived. Thank you for yesterday. Emma's fever seems to have gone after sleeping all night, which really helped. Scarlett said in a manner as if a heart emoji should be at the end of her sentence, without a hint of remorse. Next to her, Emma looked upset for some reason. Curious, I was about to speak, but Mia, seeing her mother, lit up and rushed to embrace her, leaving me with no choice but to keep quiet.
Mom, you're back.
Mia. I'm back, let's go home. Scarlett spoke to Mia as she hugged her. At that moment, I felt something off in Scarlett's smile. For a brief moment, it seemed like a look of laziness towards Mia. It was so brief that I couldn't be sure. Was it just my frustration from yesterday making me see things, or was there really something off? Unsure of the fleeting feeling, I couldn't confront her about it. Then, we'll visit again soon. As Scarlett said this and took Mia's hand heading to the car, an angry-looking Emma handed me a letter. Read this after we leave. Emma whispered, passing me the letter discreetly, making sure Scarlett didn't hear. Sensing something was seriously wrong, I took the letter without asking any further questions. After Scarlett left, I called Henry into the living room, and we read Emma's letter together. It contained shocking information.
Mom changed after finding a new boyfriend. She's hardly home and gives money to this man. She's using the prize money I won from a piano competition and a concert to pay him. She's leaving Mia with Grandma and Grandpa because this man has started to dislike Mia and finds her annoying. She sees me as a tool to earn money through piano. Soon, Mom might push Mia onto Grandma and Grandpa permanently. I'm okay, but please look after Mia.
I was stunned and speechless at the unbelievable content of the letter, and at the end of it, I noticed what appeared to be a mobile phone email address. I remembered Scarlett mentioning that Emma's piano talents blossomed when she entered elementary school and that her lessons had become busier. Emma, even as a young child, had gained media attention for her skills and had now become a piano prodigy, attracting nationwide attention. Things have become rather dangerous lately, so I decided to give her a mobile phone. It seems normal these days for elementary school kids to have one, and I thought it wouldn't be a problem. If she's receiving media attention, it's a natural concern and precaution for a parent to have. I remember hearing this story and thinking how times have changed. This email address must belong to Emma's mobile phone. Emma is quite a smart girl. If she's written down her mobile phone address, it means she isn't being monitored by Scarlett. It must be safe to contact her there. Believing this to be Emma's address, I decided to reach out. Good evening. Is this Emma's address?
Yes, it's me. Thanks for reading my letter. Grandma, please help Mia.
I received this reply after 10 p.m. Probably just as she was going to bed. I then exchanged several messages with Emma. Tell me more about what's happening. Make sure to delete our messages afterward.
Of course. I wasn't really sick yesterday. It was all a lie so Mom could go see her boyfriend. I was left at a friend's house, and Mom went out with him. He seems to be in a band, and Mom's always following him around. She's using the money I earn from piano competitions to spend time with him. I don't really mind, but Mia, she's treated terribly at home. Mia doesn't understand and always smiles, but after being scolded, she cries a lot and is inconsolable. Mom prioritizes her boyfriend over us now. She's happy when I give her money. But as long as Mia is around, Mom will continue to treat her horribly. The boyfriend even said to leave Mia with you and Grandpa. Mia might be happier with you. So please, help Mia. I'll do anything for her. Reading the message to the end, I couldn't stop my tears. Such a young girl, only 6 years old, desperately trying to protect her sister. Especially since she's the same age as her. Sacrificing herself without a second thought.
What a terrible mother to make such a young child feel this way.
What are you planning to do? You could be in danger too.
I'll be okay. Mom needs me as long as I can play the piano. If it gets too much, I'll threaten to quit. I want to become better at piano. If that means using them to my advantage. That man seems well connected in the industry, so I'll use that to my advantage. So don't worry about me. But please, take care of Mia. I can't protect her. Can she really be only 6 years old? Her maturity made me feel her strength. But we never know what might happen. Not to overdo it, to rely on us if things get tough. And to keep in touch without fail. And be careful not to lose contact. I promised her 3 things. I agreed to help Emma. A month later, Scarlett's irresponsible behavior continued, and we were constantly being inconvenienced. But we couldn't let anything happen to Mia. We even started to say that we wanted to take care of Mia ourselves to protect her and keep our promise to Emma. One day, Scarlett came to our house with Mia, asking for a favor. I might be going abroad soon. What? Henry, listening with me, also looked shocked. Emma's piano teacher thinks highly of her talent. She might get to study with a famous teacher in Italy. If she does well there, she'll become a world-famous pianist. That's why I came to ask if you could take care of Mia. It's impossible to take her abroad. I couldn't help but doubt Scarlett's story. Emma hadn't mentioned anything like this. There was no reason for her to keep such a big secret. I stared at Scarlett suspiciously. Can you take Mia upstairs? I need to talk to Scarlett alone. Henry seemed to understand from my expression. He took Mia and left the living room. Tell me the truth. What? Emma going abroad, such a sudden decision isn't plausible, is it? Also, the last time you left Mia with us, a friend of mine saw you walking around town with a man. If you keep hiding the truth unnecessarily, I'll have to take appropriate action. What's the real reason? Tell me the truth. The story about a friend spotting her was a lie. But I thought it necessary to shake her up. Fooled by my words, Scarlett revealed her true colors. If you already knew everything, you should have said so earlier. There was no need for such an act. What? Her sudden change in demeanor took me by surprise. Her tone and attitude were so unbelievable that I couldn't see her as the kind Scarlett I knew. To be clear, Mia is a nuisance. Just saying she has a developmental disability lowers my chances of remarrying significantly. Emma's success does offset that to some extent, but being a mother of a child with disabilities, nobody wants to associate with me. So, for my and Emma's happiness, I want you to take Mia. It's better for Emma to have a father, right? It would be good for my mental health too. Scarlett spoke nonchalantly, without a hint of remorse. I was speechless, unable to comprehend her words. She said something even more surprising. In short, I'm giving Mia to you. Emma is all I need. You are happy about having a grandchild, so it works out perfectly, right? She talked about Mia being a useless burden and a financial strain, laughing. I couldn't recognize her as a human being. Mia still loves her as a mother. Mia, so pure and earnest, loves her mother despite the terrible treatment. Thinking of Mia's feelings made me furious at Scarlett's attitude and words. But I didn't want to argue. For us, Mia is a precious remnant of our son. Rather than being raised by such a worthless parent, we wanted to take care of her and make her happy. Calming myself, I responded to her words. Then, I'll raise her. In return, you'll never see Mia again. I'll tell her that her mother has passed away. For her sake, never call yourself her mother again. Don't ever show up in front of her. Yeah. Do whatever you want. I'm happy to get rid of such a useless child. Scarlett said this, stretched her arms out wide as if relieved. And left our house without telling Mia anything. Thus, Mia came to live with us as our adopted daughter. Of course, the first few months were tumultuous. Mia was distraught over her mother's absence, causing a great deal of mental strain. We reached out to doctor acquaintances, invited specialists to our home, and collaborated with therapeutic institutions, focusing on her support. Thanks to that, a few months later, Mia returned to school and was able to live a more settled life. 10 years later, when Mia was in her first year of high school, an incident occurred. One afternoon, someone repeatedly rang our doorbell. It was a holiday, and we were spending time together as a family. Who could it be, ringing the bell so many times? Irritated by the rude visit, I went to the door and grimaced when I saw who it was through the peephole.
I know you're there. Come out. Give back Mia, you thieving family.
There stood Scarlett, whom we had cut ties with 10 years ago, and a flamboyantly dressed man. Possibly he is the boyfriend from the rumors. What's going on? The front door seems noisy. Henry. Scarlett found our house and has come to visit suddenly.
What?
We had moved to change our lives after cutting ties with Scarlett. We bought a place convenient for our jobs, never expecting she would find us. Henry and I exchanged looks, wondering what to do. It's okay, Grandma, Grandpa. Let them in. I want to settle things with that person. Mia was now 16. Her developmental disability had stabilized, and she could communicate normally. Though she still had intense fixations and could get absorbed in things, these traits helped her succeed in a certain venture.
You're late. If you're inside, just let us in quickly.
Scarlett had changed into a completely different person from the one who used to live with our son. As soon as she entered our house, she sat down next to a man on the sofa, crossing her arms and legs in an arrogant manner and glaring at us, clearly in a bad mood. Though her attitude was irksome, reacting to her provocations would only play into her hands. We took a deep breath to maintain our calm, sat across from her, and asked what this was all about. You have no business bringing strangers into my house. What do you want now, after cutting ties with me 10 years ago? Mia was sitting at a nearby workbench, busy with some writing. Fortunately, when she's in this focused mode, she doesn't hear anything around her. Knowing she wouldn't be bothered by our argument, we were told to have our discussion here. Glancing sideways at Mia, Scarlett smirked and arrogantly declared,
It's simple. I've come to take Mia back. She's my daughter, so it's my right to have her back, isn't it?
What is this woman talking about? Has she forgotten what she said that day, 10 years ago? Lost for words at Scarlett's absurd thinking, a stern-looking Henry addressed her in a low voice. You said you didn't want Mia and discarded her. We told Mia her mother was dead, and that should have been the end of it.
That was just a verbal agreement. Besides, Mia knows I'm alive through the letters I sent her, right? If her mother is alive, there's no reason for us to live apart.
Scarlett's defiant reply was infuriating. She had bombarded our home with letters once she learned of Mia's talent and even showed up at her school to make her presence known. Do you have any idea how much pain your selfish actions have caused Mia? Scarlett's actions had recklessly stirred up Mia's emotions. Believing her mother was dead, Mia was so disturbed by this revelation that she couldn't even go to school for a while. However, thanks to her friends and a certain child, she gradually recovered and was able to return to her normal life.
I'm telling you, I'll take proper care of her from now on. So hand over Mia to me. Enough already.
Scarlett, eager to justify herself and demand Mia's return, was interrupted by Mia herself. Mia threw a pen at near Scarlett's face, and she stepped up to Scarlett, shaking her fist in anger.
You never cared about me. You dumped me with Grandma and others because I was in the way of your time with that man. And now you claim to be a mother? Don't make me laugh. To me, you're not a mother at all.
We could never have imagined she would speak like this when she was little. She used to accept everything her mother did with a smile, never showing anger. But living with us, Mia had changed. She developed a rich emotional life, and thanks to therapy, her teachers, and friends, she learned to express herself. She even learned to distinguish right from wrong. In defiance of her mother, who had abandoned her, Mia honed a particular talent. So, she must not forgive Scarlett, who had chose the man getting along well over her. Scarlett didn't know how much I understood about Mia. She also didn't realize that she was being betrayed by a certain child.
You're just greedy for money. I knew you'd show up sooner or later. After all, you know I'm the author of that movie.
At those words, Scarlett's face showed a flicker of unease. After we took her in, we had Mia try various things. Scarlett had made Mia play the piano like Emma, but it wasn't for Mia. That was the real reason she considered abandoning Mia. We had heard about this from a certain child and encouraged Mia to explore her interests and take her to places she wanted to visit. As a result, Mia discovered a talent for something special. It was drawing. She had an exceptional artistic sense. Her imagination was beyond our expectations. As Henry and I, both of whom work in animation, recognize her excellent work. I tried showing it to a certain author. We even showed her work to a famous industry figure, who has an award named after him. His high praise led to her drawings being immediately adopted by my company's editorial department. She demonstrates stellar performance in drawing, which was made into an animated TV series and films in a flash.
Now, I'm worth more than Emma. You thought you could use me to pay off the money you spent on that man and your ballooning gambling debts, didn't you? Too bad. I know all about your wrongdoings. Who would want to go back to a terrible parent like you now? Get out. My real parents are Grandpa, Grandma, and Dad.
Scarlett was shaken by these unexpected words from Mia. Why did she know everything? We hadn't even talked about it, so how did she find out? In the midst of confusion and agitation, the man next to her was showing anger at being yelled at.
What are you saying to mother who gave birth to you? Did I ask to be born? You gave birth to me, abandoned me, and now you come back for your own convenience. I don't want to hear mother from someone who's only interested in money. Who would go back to a greedy woman like you? Get out now. Just the thought of you makes me sick.
Scarlett was speechless from the shock and surprise of being defied. The man next to her stood up in anger, about to grab her. Just as we stood up to stop him, a voice came from the living room entrance.
If you do that, I'll show this video to the police and have you thrown in jail right now.
Everyone turned to see Emma at the entrance, holding her mobile phone camera. She was supposed to be in Italy.
Why is Emma here? Isn't she in Italy? I asked my teacher to reschedule my lessons. I thought you'd try to get in touch with Mia while I was away and bring her back to our house. I'm glad I kept in touch with her beforehand. As I thought, you came to Grandma and Grandpa's place.
Emma said this and walked next to Mia, filming the man to protect him. Emma had explained everything to Mia and had always been there to protect her. She continued to use the man next to Scarlett. With his knowledge of the music industry, she might be able to meet the foreign pianist she admired. She wouldn't spare money to fulfill her dream. And she had a plan to leave Scarlett when the time came.
This is my investment to fulfill my dream. It's not hard at all. They're so stupid. They don't know I'm secretly having Grandma manage the money. The reward money I give them is just a fraction, so don't worry.
Emma, now a middle school student, began studying about money and law. She had grown up to be as knowledgeable as an adult, talking about her family situation at work and getting full support from the office. Thanks to that, Emma's bank account had enough savings to live on her own. She was finally ready for settling in Italy, which has been her long-cherished dream leaving Scarlett, so she talked to Mia about it in advance.
I've been adopted by Grandma and Grandpa too. What?
Scarlett was visibly confused by this unexpected turn of events. The man next to her hadn't anticipated this either. In a panic, he pressed Scarlett about what to do.
After all the good times I've given you, you should be satisfied by now. I don't need trash like you around me as I become big. Emma and I have never considered you our mother, so rest assured. Don't ever show yourself to us again. We've already talked to Grandma and Grandpa about the adoption. All that's left is your consent, but we're prepared for a refusal and have already contacted a lawyer.
I'm so happy to think I'll finally be able to live with Emma again.
Well, I live in Italy, so we won't see each other often, but considering everything we've been through, it's easy, right? Now we can enjoy many things together again.
Seeing them happy, I couldn't help but smile, and an infuriated Scarlett reached for my collar.
You're the one! You filled Emma's head with nonsense.
But Emma quickly turned her camera to Scarlett to protect her.
Don't get the wrong idea. I made this proposal to Grandma and Grandpa on my own. You thought I was your ally, so you never suspected me. I always comforted you, didn't I? But I've never once thought of you as my mother. My parents are my deceased father, and Grandma and Grandpa, who still love us.
Scarlett, who had never been defied by them before, looked like it was the end of the world. She sat down on the sofa in a daze, unable to accept reality.
Mia has always longed for you.
With Scarlett in such a pathetic state, I delivered the final blow.
You rejected the love she repeatedly sought from her mother. You, drowned in men, have no right to call yourself a mother. I will take good care of Mia and Emma with Henry. Don't ever come near these kids again. You are no longer their family.
Hearing this, Scarlett broke down in tears. She kept calling for Mia and Emma, but her pleas never reached them. As they asked to be kicked out, Henry turned Scarlett and the man away.
If you persist, I'll call the police. At this threat, they left the house scared.
Since then, Scarlett and the man visited several times, begging to have them returned. But their persistence disgusted Mia, and she reported them to the police. Under the anti-stalking law, they were forbidden to approach Mia, ensuring her safety. Thus, they successfully severed ties with Scarlett. Their lingering feelings cleared, Mia and Emma lived freely. Emma became a world-famous pianist, met her destiny in Italy, and now performs concerts worldwide with her violinist lover. As for Mia, her movie adaptation was a global hit, making her a popular creator. We've been involved in her works and now support her life as a united family.